all of our members to take a seat. This is the final Joint Committee on State Governments, meeting 6 of the interim, and we'll call it to order, and we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Senator Alvarado.
Here.
Senator Harper Angel. Senator McDaniel. Senator McGarvey. Senator Nemes.
Present.
Senator Schroeder. Senator Southworth. Senator Storm.
Here.
Senator Thayer. Senator Wheeler. Representative Blanton.
Here.
Representative Bowling. Representative Cantrell. Representative Decker.
Present.
Representative Duplessis. Representative Fisher. Representative Flood. Representative Gooch. Representative Graham. Representative Heath.
Here.
Representative Heverin. Representative Herron.
Here.
Representative Imes.
Present.
Representative Johnson. Representative Cook. Representative Derek Lewis. Representative Scott Lewis.
Here.
Representative Maddox. Representative Mentor.
Here.
Representative Moser.
Here.
Representative Nemes.
Here.
Representative Scott. Representative Smith. Representative Stevenson. Representative Tate. Representative Tipton.
Here.
Representative Upchurch.
Here.
Representative Weber.
Here.
Representative Wheatley.
Here.
Representative Bratcher.
Here.
Representative Miller.
Here.
Senator Mill.
I'm here, and Representative Haverin just walked in. She is here as well. Okay, just a couple announcements before we get started. For the folks that are in attendance here, we do have a meeting that overlaps at 1:30. So if a couple members stand up and leave and walk out, we apologize for that in advance, but we'll have 2 or 3 members leaving the committee for another committee meeting. Representative Wheatley would like to recognize a couple of distinguished visitors that he has.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to recognize we do have 4 visitors here, and one is the founder and the director of the International Public Policy and Management Institute at the University of Kentucky, and that's Dr. Duo Kim. And he has 3 of his, please stand, yes, thank you. And he has 3 of the participants in the Institute, 2 of which are National Assembly staff people. They're basically their LRC, and 1 is a state staff person for, I'm not going to pronounce the state, but it is a state that includes Saigon. Please make them feel welcome.
Thank you so much for visiting our General Assembly, and hopefully you enjoy it. Are there any other visitors that members would like to introduce? All right, very good. Well, we will move right into our first item, which is the Kentucky State Police. And, we need to approve our minutes. So minutes from October 25th meeting. Hopefully you've read that. We've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. The minutes are approved for the October 25th meeting. Now we'll move into the Kentucky State Police, and if the members would like to move forward, I guess, is this Colonel Burnett? Very good. If you can have a seat and introduce yourself, and the floor will be yours.
Good afternoon. I'm Colonel Philip Burnett, Jr., Commissioner, Kentucky State Police, and thank you for having me here today.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Was requested to come over to talk about some of the items dealing with Kentucky State Police. 2 things in particular would be recruitment and retention, and I'll kind of break those up into 2 different parts. Kind of tell you an overview of what we're going. First of all, I want to thank the General Assembly for the contributions and support of how the Kentucky State Police fared in the last session. One thing that we were severely dealing with was our lack of manpower. We were down in the 700s dealing with our troopers, and also had several members that were eligible to retire. At that time, before House Bill 259, which solidified our 16052, our pay scale, that really stopped the bleeding for people leaving our departments, especially our sworn. At that time, we were 74th that we could track in starting pay for police officers in Kentucky, and for state agencies that touched Kentucky, we were last during that time. But with the raises that we received, we were able to offset retirements. Typically, we have a pretty good retirement cycle in July, and we had 38 that had retired or 37 in 2022 fiscal year, and then in 2021 we had 21. And at that time we had about close to 100 that was eligible to retire. What I'm happy to report is with that is that we have only had 2 retirements for this quarter so far, and that really has helped us a lot. We also have not had any resignations except for one that I just received today, and that one is resigned to go to LMPD, and I'll discuss that one in just a few minutes. We had numerous troopers that were retiring and resigning to go to other agencies and to go to private sectors. But since the pay raise come in, that we've had 4 reinstatements of troopers that left us that come back, even from private sector or other police agencies. And we've also had one of our highest numbers of Trooper R's that have wanted to come back. Trooper R is a program that are troopers that have retired. If they've retired within 5 years and good standing, then if we can hire them back on a contractual basis. I'm happy to report that we had the highest number that we've had. We have 65 of those. And 14 had come back just since the first of the year. Some of them knew that there was a possibility of about receiving some increased benefits. So right now, our sworn troopers stands at 897 from down in the 700s. That and 65 of those, as I said, are Trooper R's, and that includes the 38 cadets that will be graduating this Friday. That will be our 102nd cadet class. So we've also have our CVE, our commercial vehicle enforcement officers. We have 65 of those, and 10 of those are retirees that are working in those duties. So our numbers are growing. We were able to run with the graduation class of 38 that we will graduate Friday. We'd ran another class that graduated in March of 2022, and that graduated 71. So just for the calendar year of 2022, we've graduated 109 troopers. And by offsetting our retirements, by only having those 2, by stopping resignations, and by being able to run these classes, that is really why our numbers have grown to where they're at. Now, we still need to do much better than 897, and we're working on that, and I'll talk about that a little bit more on the retention. But with these pay raises that was received, not only was it the $15,000 that was allotted to us, but as well as they were for supervisors, for those ranks, there was also pay increases for those as well. So that was a 2-part thing. A lot of our supervisors are very tenured, very experienced troopers, so that kept those around. And it also increased that we want some of our highly trained people are highly motivated to participate in our promotional system. And by doing that, now that gives them another avenue, another guide more to want to have some of our, we would say, best of the best Not everyone wants to be a supervisor, and we have some that aren't, but we have some that want to. So that will actually give them some incentive to promote as well. So by those pay raises, as I said, we were 74th, and then we were last. But when we received those, what we were able to track, that probably put us in the top 5 in starting pay for police officers in Kentucky. That also put us number 4 for, as of we are right now, for starting pay for other state agencies that touch Kentucky. So, and we're about tied with West Virginia. But some of the other states and some of the other departments, they had increases as well by their some of their leadership that they received. But that's really put us very, very, very competitive, and that's helped our ranks. So the retention and the raises, it did what we felt it would do, and it's helped that dramatically. Now I'll talk about recruitment. Recruitment is it's hard. It's hard across the country, but what I can tell you is our recruitment efforts are better than most. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. The economy is good in Kentucky. It's really good. So we are competing against other private industry, other things that would have some of these good-paying jobs. But what we've done, we made our recruitment section the largest it's ever been in the history of the state police. We have 5 members in there that the only thing they do is focus on recruiting. We have 3 African Americans, we have 1 female, and then we have 1 commander that is focused and working on recruitment across the state. They even have some that are going to colleges that are close to Kentucky out of state. We've tried to focus on those areas that have a high number of minorities and females, just because we need to do better in those ranks, and we've really put forth a lot of effort to do that. Our applications have doubled within about the past 7 weeks. We plan to start a class February the 26th of next year. And what we can do is we can safely start a class with 110 cadets. That's the most we can train. We can actually put in our academy facility over there and start training. So if we can put 110 cadets in there, that's what we're going to do. And if up through the first week, if we have some that fall out of the academy class, what we can do is we can backfill through the first week. But I checked our applications this morning, and we're about 350, which some may think, well, those numbers aren't as high as they used to be. And I ask that because you hear the numbers before, they used to be in the thousands. And that is true. That is true. But what I can tell you, there is more involvement. There's more things you have to do to put yourself in a position to apply to be with the state police. There's things you have to go ahead and obtain your fingerprints. You have to pay for those. There's different things you have to do to prepare yourself. You're not just putting in an application. And out of those 350 is that we have 28 of those that are LEAP candidates. And what that is, those are certified police officers that are already police officers here in Kentucky. And the pay raise, that is where that we felt that we would attract other departments to be able to come in and state police, some of those to come to us. And with 28, those are good. But I would have liked to see that to be higher. But there were some things that negotiated on some of their pay, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. But out of those 350 applications, 45 of those are minority, 28 are female, and then those 28 LEAP candidates. So we've really increased our efforts. We've tried to focus in those areas where they would want to come to state police. Now, it takes just money to attract someone to the state police. And that's a huge part of it, and I can't thank everyone here in the General Assembly enough. But we've also got to tailor things. We've got to kind of think and get people into our agency. First, we did the LEAP that we've talked about. But we had a program because it was called the Pick 3. The reason why we went with Pick 3 is because what we were seeing was that we'd have candidates that were in far western Kentucky that did not want to apply because they had the possibility of having to go to eastern Kentucky or vice versa, and they have families, and we understand that. So what we did with the Pick 3, and they could pick 3 posts that they would be willing to work at, and then based on our manpower needs, we would determine which posts they would get. That was pretty successful for a little bit, but it's kind of, as we talk to potential candidates, and we realize people now, they seem like they're maybe a little older when they apply. They have families, they're established, they have their homes. And then also we're competing against agencies like Bowling Green or Northern Kentucky or some of these where they can get a position as a police officer and they can stay right there at home and still not even take the position and have to go 3 posts over. So what we did an in-depth analysis of that, and then we decided that we were going to recruit per post. And we did an in-depth analysis of manpower, and what we did, out of those 110, for instance, we had where we were advertising for troopers to work at the Mayfield post. We would advertise for 10 positions. Anybody can apply for that post. They can put in, and then based on how they graduate out of the academy, if all 10 of those were to graduate, they will be assigned back at Mayfield post. The post that we're having the hardest time with is Dry Ridge, Campbellsburg, Mayfield, Madisonville, Moorhead, and Ashland. The rest of the posts, there's a lot, it seems like there's more interest there. But we also realize some of these areas, they have positions at these larger agencies where they can apply and they can stay there. So what we have seen since we come out with that is that our application process has doubled. Just in 7 weeks, we went up. That went from 150 to 350, and we are going to accept applications until November the 26th of this month. We'll have to stop that because we'll have to do some testing and things to establish what the roster will be for the cadet class. So I want everyone to know that we just weren't looking at pay to be the magic bullet, which that, like I said, that helps so much. But we have looked at every single thing we can do to tailor to bring people into the state police, and that's been successful. But now here's some other things we did. The KSP, we're about partnerships. We're about partnerships with our local departments. We're about partnerships with other state entities. We're partnerships with our federal entities. But we have a brand. And everyone here over the past few years have seen what things have affected Kentucky. And Kentucky's had more than their fair share with events that have requested law enforcement. Not including our natural disasters, the Eastern Kentucky flooding, the Western Kentucky tornadoes. But, our law enforcement role, it kind of expanded out to a humanitarian effort. And even though how low we were, I think anytime if you see those events, probably one of the first people you saw was a man or woman in a state police uniform right there that was helping to rescue somebody from ravaging floodwaters, or was helping someone out of a tornado ravaged or damaged building. State police were there. And we were there on the ground, and not only that, we were the ones that were helping set up shelters. We were helping Red Cross. We were helping other things because we knew those areas. We knew our communities. And And we really tried to elaborate upon that. You know, it's more than just a law enforcement role. I mean, look, people come to the state police because they want to serve their fellow Kentuckians. They want to help people. And what more to highlight than what we did? So, you know, we've really done a grassroots thing to our troopers, because not only do we have 5 people they have nothing to do but recruit, but at the end of the day, we all have a part of this. From me right down to the cadets that's getting ready to graduate Friday. The more they help recruit the man or woman that comes in the state police, that's more opportunities for them. That's more opportunities for their fellow Kentuckian. That's more opportunities to have better days off for our troopers. That's more opportunities for them to be able to be a detective. That's more opportunities for them to go to our special response team, work the Kentucky State Derby, the fair, the Breeders' Cup. Look at the things that Kentucky State Police has that is different from any other law enforcement agency that's here in Kentucky. And our troopers have really took that and ran. And with the individual recruiting per post, they're having recruitment fairs there at their post. You know, they're talking with potential candidates where they work out at fitness place. Our coaches are talking with high school students. They're talking with just different things. We're doing colleges, and it's really worked. So we want to be proud of that, Brandon. We want people to come to us. Look what the state police has to offer. And again, I think that is why our numbers have went up. And I'm excited about the potential of starting up to 110. I don't know if we'll get there, but I feel very confident that we'll be in excess of 100 cadets that we'll be able to start. Now, you know, I talked about, you know, some of the numbers are down, and then we talk about how recruitment is. But let me step back just a second too. What I was talking about, our ground roots effort on recruitment. We have saw a lot of the negativity about scrutiny towards, or I won't say scrutiny, but just not a very pro-police climate in some of the media things across the country. So we all get the national media networks, and they look at that. Our troopers look at that. And we have to tell them, hey, we got to go out and we have to really talk about the good things. There's been no huge movements about defund the Kentucky State Police. They've been none of that here. Our legislature supports us. Our governor supports us. Our community leaders supports us. Everybody supports law enforcement here in Kentucky. And that's what we need to push out to other people that are potential candidates, because overall, Kentucky is very much supported here. And they see that, and we want to push that out to them. And that's one thing when they're talking about potential candidates, because like I tell them, is that we all started out somewhere. You either started out in the Army, you started out in college, you started out as a restaurant worker, whatever you may have worked, we all started somewhere. So you have to look for those qualities and talk with them. So I do feel like that is working well. And you may ask about some of the numbers. Well, why aren't your numbers higher? Well, we have grown out of the 700s, which is good. But our efforts, as far as a state police agency, are much, much better than others. Some of the ones I'd like to discuss is Illinois State Police. Their last class, they graduated 10 troopers. The class before that, they graduated 17. The class before that, they graduated 21. Indiana, they graduated 18 out of their last class. They just started a class, and they have 23 cadets that they have started. Virginia they have a class ongoing right now with 35 cadets. And then the class before that, they graduated 16. So that shows you here in Kentucky what we are doing as a collaborative group is working. Now, it took us years to get into this position. In 2006, we had 1,009 troopers. We got down into 700. So it took years to get to that point. But look how we're growing. It's going to take years to get out of it. but I do think in 4 to 5 years we'll be up well over 1,000 if we keep going what we're doing. That's really about all I have with recruitment and retention. I mean, I think that's an overview of where we're at there. And I know one of the other questions or topics I was asked to talk about was possibly about crime rates in Kentucky.
If you have something to share on crime rates, that would be great.
Okay. In Kentucky, our crime rates has kind of trended overall with the national model. A lot of the stuff that we ran were started in 2017. One things I was asked to do was talk about crime rates, rural versus urban. Some of that is hard for us to track because, especially in the current year, because there's some agencies that do not report in to our reporting system. There's about 5: LMPD, Nelson County Sheriff's Office, Winchester PD, Daviess County Sheriff's Office, and Owensboro. So those are some large metropolitan areas or large areas that do not report to us. So some of these figures that we did, if I say rural, what we kind of did is look at it as anything that would be 50,000 people or more. But in 2017, well, and start here too. Some of y'all may be aware of Part 1 crimes. That's typically what we had before. That were some of our major felonies in Kentucky. But now what we've done is tailored towards with the FBI on their reporting system. So now you have, instead of Part 1 crimes, they're called Part A crimes, Group A crimes. So that's what some of those are, and they've kind of expanded some of those. But in 2017, they were 282,000, and I won't go into the specific numbers, crimes reported in Kentucky. The next year, they was 275, a decrease. That's 2018, 275,000. In 2019, that went to 264. In 2020, that went down to 243. 2021, it went down to 242. And as the best that we can track now through the end of September, we are at 176,000. Now, there's some of those that have went up, but the majority of crimes have went down. Some of the violent offenses have went up, but overall reported crimes have went down. Now, I can say that I would like to think a lot of that is because how law enforcement has tailored some of the things dealing with the community. You know, for instance, Kentucky State Police, some things we have done is now we have the Victims Advocate Service. We have Angel Initiative. We have community outreach programs, our Shop with a Trooper, our Cram the Cruiser, the Trooper Island. So I feel like some of that is starting to really catch hold of, especially across Kentucky, to where, you know, we're reaching out, you know, we're connecting with people. We've tailored our training towards community outreach and those type things. So, but one of the things that we struggle with right now that's really big, and I'm sure everybody is aware of it, is fentanyl. That's one of the things that our state is struggling with, but that is a thing that's across the country. Fentanyl, as you know, is we work with our partners in the DEA very closely. It's manufactured in China. It's sent to Mexico, and then it's trafficked into the country and trafficked here in Kentucky. Our lab submissions, which we take in lab submissions from every police department in Kentucky. In 2012, we had 15 requests that had fentanyl. 15. In 2020, we had 4,177. In 21, we had 5,806. And just through the end of September, we have 3,900 submissions for fentanyl. That's through our KSP laboratory. So obviously, it's a problem. and it's an issue. And how that really probably will hit home here about the fentanyl and discussing that is the overdoses that we've had. In 2021, we had 2,250 deaths due to drug overdose. 1,562 of those were contributed to fentanyl. So, and fentanyl is, it's extremely dangerous. As everyone knows, two granules of like salt, an average person that's not a drug user could potentially die from just those 2 granules. It's very dangerous. It's very dangerous for law enforcement here in Kentucky to be out and to be faced with that. It's very dangerous for our lab personnel when those come in. I talked about all the submissions that we had there with fentanyl. Some of the things that we have done, we've purchased 908 devices and TrueNarcs where we don't have to handle that. It'll tell us exactly what that is. But the scary thing is that the other, I would say, illegal drugs that's coming in to be examined by our laboratory is potentially, well, it is 42% of those contain some type of trace of fentanyl in those. So that's something that we're working very tightly with the Drug Enforcement Administration and our partners here in Kentucky. But as of right now, that's one of the bigger issues that we're dealing with is the fentanyl. So that's kind of a overview of the state police, some of the things that we have going on, and again, I can't thank everyone enough for the support that they have because of that, morale is very good in the Kentucky State Police, and by the support that we received on numerous things, and not only that, but we have over $107 million in capital projects that was funded by the legislature for us. So it's very obvious that the state police is very much supported by here, and I thank you, and I'm open for any questions.
Well, Commissioner, thank you so much for the good news that you delivered today. We do have a couple of questions in the queue, and Senator McDaniel has a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, thank you for being here. Just briefly, as we're talking about recruiting, is a tattoo policy still the same, that if you have a short sleeve shirt on, you can't have visible tattoos? And knowing the number of guys that get out of the military with forearm tattoos, if that's still the policy, is there any talk at all about changing that?
We have discussed that on multiple fronts on multiple occasions. And we have dealt with some of our partners, Indiana, and their numbers have not increased because of the tattoo policy. They did change that. And some of the issues that was brought to light to us is what is an acceptable tattoo and what is acceptable even if they're off duty versus on duty. There's multiple things and symbols and that type thing that can be construed by someone as offensive. So we worry about looking at that would become what is ethical on on what would be acceptable on a tattoo, even if they're not in uniform. If they're off duty, what would be acceptable? And if we felt like it could bring 100 troopers in, we would be more willing to do it. But the agencies that we've talked with, what they said was there's really no downside except for somebody possibly that was in the military that would be able to come in. But if you have tattoos, then there is issues you have to look at. You have to look at your current personnel. What tattoos are they getting? And then if we keep that line that we've had far as our appearance, then you never have to go back and adjust that, because now ones that have had had tattoos now they're having to deal with officers and unions, and I know we don't have unions with state police and different things, but now they want to have them on their hands. They want to have them on their face, on their neck, or they want to have different things that could affect the appearance. So if you never deviate from that, you don't have to necessarily go and fight that. But we have looked at things. We've looked at things, the possibility of some incentives to have a tattoo removed. Some things that we may be able to do, but we've actually kind of started looking as a work group, how we may do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Senator Nemus.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we were very glad to give you all pay raises and to help your recruitment, and especially with your art troopers. I ran that bill. I know that they are a great supplement to when you're short and until you can get up to staff. Now, what I want to talk about is their benefits. Are they getting that yet? And if not, when is that going to be implemented?
There was an issue with the contract. They're going to get that for this contract year. That contract year started in July, the fiscal year. There's still some things that we're having to iron out and work, but even if we have to back up, they are going to get those benefits that come through with that bill.
Retroactive?
Yes, sir. For this
Okay.
calendar year, for
Can
July.
you get that out to them?
Yes, we have pushed that out through our majors, but that has been just word of mouth, but that will be out, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Co-Chair Bratcher.
Thank you, sir. That's good news that the increase of troopers, and we all want that. You don't operate in Louisville. You never have. Is that correct? And I have another question after that.
Well, that is part of, we do have authority there, obviously, and we do come in when we're requested. We were there during the summer of 2020.
Yeah.
A lot we were requested, so we were there. We LMPD based, if we work their officer-involved shootings, if we have, if we're able to do so. They've been we've had in excess of 40 officer-involved shootings that Kentucky State Police has worked across Kentucky this year. So based on our staffing model, if we have people that are available to work that, we will work those. But as far as a regular, just a regular patrol type duty, we do not have those there. We do work some drug investigations that go over into Jefferson County, but where our manpower numbers have been lower, some of the other surrounding counties that are lower that don't have the police agencies and personnel to be able to deal. So we've had to tailor those more towards the rural areas, and that's one of our bigger missions is we have to take care of the rural areas, and then as our manpower has, then we will branch out to other areas such as that.
Yeah, and I certainly understand that. But has it historically always been that way, or do I need to get a hold of a historian? I mean, has there ever been a post in Louisville?
Well, our E-Town post covers Louisville, covers Jefferson County. So, if we have personnel available and if there is a request for something in particular, a larger investigation, we do go in. But we do, just with our limited manpower and the roadways that are in the E-Town post area, the interstates and parkways, we have to tailor and push a lot of our personnel towards that way.
Do you operate in Lexington? That's my last question.
It's about the same. It's tailored about the same as Jefferson County. Fayette County is that if we're in, it's more or less that we are requested. We would work an officer-involved shooting. If we're requested to come in, some sort of our crowd management teams, or for some sort of special request, a white-collar investigation, those type things we do. But as far as having a trooper dedicated to just Fayette or Jefferson County, at this time, based on our current manpower, we do not.
Representative Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much. I'm over here for your presentation and for sharing the good news about the recruitment and retention. I know that we were all very happy to support our law enforcement and make sure that you all got those raises. So I'm happy to see that it's helping. We also passed a bill to allow more online training for officers. Does that affect KSP, or do you know if that's being implemented yet? And can you tell me kind of your thoughts? The whole idea is to help keep those officers who are hired closer to home for some of their training and get them out on the streets in our communities sooner and save our cities and counties some money in sending officers off to the academy.
Yeah, we do some online training. It's not as much because we can take our our training personnel and augment them towards where they're at. Like we could take them to Madisonville, our academy staff, and we could train officers there. We do it at our E-Town campus. We'll go to Pikeville, so we'll do that. A lot of what we do is if we have our own internal in-service, a lot of it is interactive. But we do, whenever we can utilize as a cost-saving measure, we do use online that we can. I know we use a lot of online with our partner at DOCJT. Some of the things we take with them, we do that online, like Jill's Law and some of those. So especially with our Department of Criminal Justice training, some of those, we do utilize that when we can.
Okay, thank you. And I hope that you'll stay in touch with us and let us know how we can continue to help you recruit and retain officers. And if I may, I have one quick question about fentanyl. Very concerning. We are all hearing more and more about fentanyl. We are all very concerned. There are some harm reduction programs in place, and I just want to kind of get your feel for some of this. We've heard about fentanyl test strips and that they are considered paraphernalia. How do you deal with this? Is this a problem? The jury's kind of out as to whether or not they are actually effective in testing the drugs that individuals are using, or if it changes behavior. But should these be treated as paraphernalia?
That's really on the treatment side. With that, we really don't have a lot of involvement with those fentanyl test strips. If I'm not aware of us looking at those as paraphernalia. I am not.
Okay. Well, that's good news because, of course, the goal is to get individuals into treatment as well as reduce the supply in other ways. And I think we do that through supporting law enforcement. And then Narcan distribution, folks are, one pill can kill, and a lot of these counterfeit pills, as you alluded to, are tainted or contain fentanyl. Would you, do you support the increased Narcan distribution? There's talk of putting Narcan in schools like EpiPens. We're seeing kids on school buses overdose. What are your thoughts about that?
I know the state police, all of our troopers, including myself, has Narcan. We have those at our post, so we do have that. Our troopers do have that to where they be able to utilize that if needed to any of our members in Kentucky or fellow law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have two more questions. Representative Herron.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I did have a couple of comments and then a couple of questions. First off, I just want to thank you for the work that you have been doing to, one, increase the amount of the recruitment efforts. And then also, it seems like that there's been a shift in philosophy of we need law enforcement, but we also need other programs and other things to help communities and law enforcement come together. So thank you for those efforts. I did just have a clarifying question. You asked, or you mentioned something about the urban and rural population. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me that number again as far as how you determine which areas are considered rural and which areas are considered urban?
Well, the way we looked at some of these stats, and it just depends how you break them down, because obviously there's entities in northern Kentucky that would have some of these larger populations, but some of them are really kind of broken up. So, but the way we looked at it was Owensboro, and then Jefferson County, Louisville, Fayette County, Lexington. So the ones that were 50,000 and above in Owensboro. So that's kind of how we run some of these stats. You could tailor it to run different ways, but that were the ones that we actually looked at to try to get some of our numbers.
Okay, thank you. And the other question that I have is that you spoke about this year that KSP has looked at 40 officer involved shootings. Is that an increase from previous years? That's the first question related to that. And then the second question is once those investigations are finished, how is that information reported out to the public, or is it reported out? How do folks find out more information about what has happened in those incidences?
They may be a slight increase from what we've worked, but that's the ones that we're working for every law enforcement agency in Kentucky. And not only that, but we are requested by federal entities to work those as well. The U.S. Marshal Service, the ATF, and there's one more. We're working for all of them except for the FBI. So, we are working those for every agency in Kentucky. And when those are closed, they are that be adjudicated through the court system. And then typically those are anything that someone may request to look at, but we don't necessarily put that forward because we just do our investigation where it goes through the court. We don't necessarily go forward with anything past that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Heverin has our last question for the
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here today. I'm down here. No, it's okay. Thank you. We appreciate everything the Kentucky State Troopers do. We are especially grateful for our legislative detail here and in Post 4 is in my district. So I'm grateful for my guys and ladies there. You had mentioned earlier that there were 4 locations that weren't in the database, like Nelson County, Davis County, and Owensboro. Could you explain a little bit more about that and why they're not in there?
They report on state mandated things to us, which is like JC3, e-citations, those type of things. But this is NIBRS, this thing through a federal reporting system. But those do get reported monthly, but we don't have access to them until it comes out at the end of the year through the Crime in Kentucky report. But there actually is Winchester PD, Nelson County, Owensboro, Davis County Sheriff's Office, and there were one more. But those 5, and that may just be how they purchase software, where some of them on the submission of the NIBRS report on the federal level, they may do it through what they call their CAD system, computer-aided dispatch, so it may just be all one package. But what it is, they do not report to the central repository of KY Ops that Kentucky State Police runs.
Is that something you feel like they should report to?
It's an economic. We initially get the results, but we just don't give them on a timely manner.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to squeeze 2 more quick questions. Senator Harper Angel has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Burnett, thank you so much for the uplifting report on the progress of KSP. They certainly make us proud. I was wondering if you could update the committee on the number of reported rapes during those same time frames that you've mentioned in other crimes, and if not, if you could provide that to the committee at a later point.
I should be able to provide those at a later point to you. I wouldn't have those accurate numbers in front of me. My apologies.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Okay, Senator Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, we're glad to hear that the steps taken by this General Assembly are assisting you in getting more troopers on our roads. We know that the best way to help fight the crime problem in Kentucky is to get more cops out enforcing our laws. So I hope that the new mayor of Louisville pays attention to your testimony today. You mentioned a handful of posts where you're having trouble recruiting new officers. One of them is Post 6 in Dry Ridge in Grant County in the heart of the district I represent. And I wondered if you had any theories as to why some of these areas aren't performing as well in terms of the recruitment of new troopers, that they're not performing as well as other parts of the state.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And the reason why is because of is the departments they have is the pay that they had. We had a lot of departments, and we knew when we received this pay raise because we had officers that were ready to come over, but they're saying our leaders at our departments are just waiting to see what your number is. And what your number is what we're going to tailor our efforts towards. And there's some of them that, Pikeville PD, for instance, I think they give their officers a $5 an hour pay raise, which is about $10,000. Berea raised theirs. Richmond raised theirs, I think, to mirror about what we are. And what they can do, these smaller departments, they're nimble how they're able to do things. You don't have to operate on the state level like we do a 2-year budget cycle. So they were waiting to see what those numbers were, where we were really jumped ahead of some of those, especially in Northern Kentucky. Then they just tailored their numbers to be able to raise their rates to keep from people from coming over, and then also to recruit those. But that's the main reason there, sir.
Mr. Chairman, quick follow-up.
Quickly, yes.
In Dry Ridge, so who are you competing with? Kenton County Police, Covington,
Yes.
Boone County Sheriff, agencies
Yes.
like that?
And for instance, LMPD, they're paying up to $75,000 for laterals. Boone County, I think, I have the stats here, but I know they're starting out, just depending on how much experience you have, between $59,000 and I think up to $70,000 for a starting deputy in Boone County. So they are looking at the seasoned law enforcement officer, and then I think it was Huntington PD across the river. They're offering a $20,000 sign-on bonus. So they're nimble, and they're just tailoring things, their pay, to be able to compete with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Commissioner, thank you so much for your presentation and the good news that you brought to us. And if you could follow up with Senator Harper Angel, and we'll get it out to the committee on the data that was requested, we'd appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. And now we have our second part of our meeting. If the DOCJT team would like to come on forward, we'll make a quick transition. Deputy Secretary, Commissioner, thank y'all for being here. Please introduce yourselves, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. They made me sit in the middle, so I guess I'm Diana Ross and these are the Supremes. So I tried to sit on this side and move it, but they made me move to the middle. So hello and good afternoon. I'm Keith Jackson, Deputy Secretary of the Department of Justice and Public Safety for the state of Kentucky. Here today with me are Commissioner Gillick and Kevin Rader, the Budget Director for the Department of Criminal Justice Training for the state of Kentucky. I want to thank you for inviting us to talk about the important work of the Department of Criminal Justice and to discuss the next steps in enhancing public safety in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. The Department of Criminal Justice serves more than 8,000 law enforcement officers across the Commonwealth and is touted as a leader in law enforcement in the nation. DOCJT offers both basic and advanced training for officers, telecommunicators in the state of Kentucky, with a state-of-the-art facility in Richmond, Kentucky. The training materials are overseen by the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council to meet Kentucky Peace Officer professional standards as mandated by state statute. Critical training is also provided to security officers, coroners, and other state and federal law enforcement agencies across the Commonwealth. And it is an imperative piece of Justice and Public Safety Cabinet's mission in ensuring safety and security of Kentucky communities, and the work of DOCJT does impact every aspect of the Commonwealth. The Department of Criminal Justice Training is continuously revising to better meet the standards of today's law enforcement officers and community needs. The agency is committed to making Kentucky a leader in public safety by enhancing law enforcement training in order to create safer communities and improve both law enforcement and the lives of Kentuckians. Annually, the Department of Criminal Justice Training approximately offers basic training to 300 recruits, in-service training for 6,000 officers, school resource officer training for 460 SROs, security officer training to 430 officers, and public safety dispatch training to 1,100 telecommunicators. I want to take a moment to express the gratitude and importance of the bipartisan investment that both Governor Brashear and yourselves are committed to the recruitment, retention, and training in 2022. These efforts not only improve the professionalism and numbers in the field of law enforcement, but also help Kentucky communities remain safe. In each of his budget proposals, Governor Brashear advocated for increasing the training stipend for certified law enforcement officers who complete the state-mandated 40 hours of annual training. The legislature understood the value of this investment and included this request in 2022, increasing the training stipend from $4,000 to $4,300. This increase ensures Kentucky officers have training needs, their training need enhanced, and to protect each community in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Equally important, these additional funds help officers to better provide for their families when they put their lives on the line for each and one of us every day. In 2022, the legislative session, lawmakers passed House Bill 556 requiring DOCJT to offer 10% of basic training hours by January of 2025 and 30% of in-service training hours to be virtual by January of 2024. We learned many things during the pandemic, including how we can better utilize technology to improve our lives, better manage our time, enhance our service delivery, and become more efficient in our jobs. By offering virtual training options, DOCJT will take advantage of the advancements in adult learning and help bring virtual training and help bring virtual training and our law enforcement into the 21st century. Expansion of virtual training will also help the Commonwealth recruit a more diverse and new generations of public safety officers who represent the diversity of the communities that they serve. Law enforcement agencies will be able to better staff their agencies and save money, and their officers time to spend with their families. DOCJT remains committed to the high quality of its courses, and virtual training courses will continue to be exceptional, interactive, and geared towards the needs of today's society. Another important investment in law enforcement training includes the Military to Law Enforcement Program, a new initiative launched by Kentucky Law Enforcement Council. M2LE will allow local law enforcement agencies to hire active service members within all branches of the military during their last 180 days of service. Upon being contracted by law enforcement agencies, the military member will continue to receive pay and benefits while being trained, while being still paid by the military and then trained by DOCJT. Again, this will help to address the recruitment issues that law enforcement agencies across the state are facing, as well as tailoring our training requirements to better serve the applicants in the field without undermining the quality of recruits. The 2022 Commonwealth of Kentucky budget, effective July 1, authorized more than $28 million for a firing range to be built at the Department of Criminal Justice Training and the Richmond campus. The firing range would be a part of a multi-purpose training facility which would conduct all kinds of training necessary for law enforcement. The 2022 budget bill also included $2.5 million for a Western Kentucky site feasibility study to be conducted on potentially constructing an additional facility in Western Kentucky. EOP Architects was awarded a contract via the request for proposal in July of 2022 to conduct the study, and EOP completed the study for $361,056. The research was recently completed, and DOCJT is nearly done with the report due to the legislatures on this study. We should be submitting that to you soon. Constructing a DOCJT facility in Western Kentucky will allow law enforcement agencies in the region to continue to receive top-tier training they have come to expect while keeping those officers closer to home, decreasing transportation costs, and reducing work disruptions in the agencies. A Western Kentucky facility was also increased the number of training slots available at for DOCJT on the Richmond campus for agencies serving northern and eastern Kentucky. Currently, officers wait 3 months to attend the basic training course in Richmond. In addition to reducing time to attend basic training, the strategic location of the proposed new campus would provide greater efficiency, with all portions of the state being within 2 hours, a 2-hour drive of the Richmond or Madisonville campuses. We are excited about the possibilities identified through the site feasibility study for DOCJT to provide the agency's full range of in-service training, including mandated school resource officer training and advanced skill training through the construction of the state-of-the-art firing range and tactical training facility. The emergency operations track and driver skills pad, as well as opportunities to conduct basic training for Public Safety Academy Dispatch Academy classes. House Bill 1 specifies that the feasibility study be conducted in Madisonville, and multiple sites within the city of Madisonville were initially evaluated for suitability. Ultimately, the Bean Cemetery Road site was selected as the most suitable due to its relatively flat grade, access to utilities, and a 300-acre expanse that would accommodate all programs requirements and allow for the future growth of the campus. The current DOCJT Richmond campus is limited in growth opportunities as it is surrounded by the Eastern Kentucky University campus. At its potential Western Kentucky facility, DOCJT would be able to accommodate an anticipated 40 to 45 in-service classes of 30 officers, and anticipated two telecommunicator classes of 24 trainees, and an 8-hour school resource officer training course. The proposed program and facilities for this Madisonville campus is estimated to cost approximately $150 million for the project. This does not include the estimated $7 million per year for operating costs. It is essential that we continue to make investments necessary to incentivize the law enforcement profession so we can recruit, retain, and train highly skilled, passionate, and committed public safety officers. This is especially critical at a time when law enforcement agencies are facing tight budgets and competing in a booming economy in Kentucky with record-breaking growth through investments in job creation. We must do all we can to ensure our law enforcement officers are equipped with the training and resources needed to create a better, safer Kentucky for future generations. I want to thank you for allowing us the time to present the site feasibility by EOP Architects and how our Western Kentucky facility will allow the Department of Criminal Justice training to make even greater strides while being an example to the nation. We are happy to answer any questions that you may have relative to our feasibility study and the work of the Department of Criminal Justice training, sir and ma'ams.
Thank you so much for that good report. Have a couple people in the queue for questions, and then I've got a couple questions myself. So Representative Nemus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm interested in asking about a different topic, and that is juvenile detention centers, if I might, real quickly. We have an emergency situation in Louisville and now in Adair County. In Jefferson County, all the juvenile detainees were removed to Adair County. A couple days ago, again, we had the inmates, the juveniles, take over the facility. I understand that we have an employee that's still fighting for his life right now today in ICU, and that there was a rape of multiple inmates on a different inmate, a young lady. So I want to know, is that information accurate? And I also want to know, why do we continue to house boys with girls?
Relative to that question, it's still an investigation, so I'm not able to report on that.
Was there a rape?
I'm not able to report on that right now, sir, because it's under investigation. But when we look at the basics of your questions, is that we are working very hard to ensure that, as we presented to you a few weeks ago on how we respond and how we are working, how we are utilizing the resources that we have presently. So when we look at whether or not whether the children are moved or separated, they have been and they are. Unfortunately, as you stated, those issues are occurring, and we are doing our best to ensure that we're implementing policies and procedures that protect the children that are under our care.
It seems to me like the easiest policy to implement would be to separate boys from girls. When I asked the secretary that, he gave me some answer about it would be wrong to treat genders differently, which is obviously utter nonsense, because within my own district, we have a prison for just women. We've been doing that since time immemorial. So when are we going to stop housing boys with girls? We now have a gang rape that just happened. This is the most foreseeable thing in the history of mankind. So you guys need to ask for more funding. I suppose we'll be right on top of it. You've never asked for funding that we didn't appropriate, to my knowledge, on this question. We want to work together on doing those kinds of things. But the first step, Mr. Secretary, that needs to be done right now is we've got to separate boys from girls. We say kids. That's a great word. They're kids. They're violent offenders. They're children, but they're violent offenders. And now we have a gang rape. A couple weeks ago, I told the secretary, separate them now. And he gave me some mumbo jumbo about how we don't want to treat boys and girls differently. I want to be on your team here, but the administration is not protecting these kids from one another. We can't protect everybody. I get it. But this was foreseeable. And when not only do we have the gang rape, but we have an employee today, is my understanding. If I'm wrong, please correct me. We have an employee that's in the ICU right now fighting for his life because the facility was overtaken again. We want to help you guys, but some things need to be done now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Mosier has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm very disturbed by what I just heard, and I couldn't agree more with my colleague, but that wasn't my question. I want to ask about House Bill 565, and I appreciate your work on getting that implemented. I want to know if you're on track to fulfill the 30% of online classes as classes, not as seats. The way that it was laid out in statute was that 30% of the online training should be 30% of the offerings, not 30% of the seats. Is that how things are rolling out now?
So when we plan our in-service training for the upcoming year, we start off with looking at the number of officers that are going to need training. And for 2023, for example, we are estimating that we are going to have to provide 40 hours of in-service for about 6,300 officers. So our first course that we do, the first thing that we do is we need to make sure that we've got a seat in a 40-hour class for all 6,300 officers. And then from there, we add on an additional amount to make up for any kind of logistical issues with scheduling, and some folks register for class and have to cancel because something comes up. So we've got about 6,700 seats in classes that each seat will be 40 hours worth of in-service credit to make sure that they reach their mandated amount of in-service. Of those 6,700 seats, we've got over 2,000 of those seats are virtual in some form or fashion. Now I hear your question about the actual topics, and we're working towards that. We're trying to have as many classes that are suitable for online delivery. And when I mean suitable, it really comes down to the subject matter. But the thing that we wanted to make sure is that access to the training itself. If we do it just solely on the basis of the number of classes, there are some classes that we only offer once a year. Some classes that we offer multiple times a year because there's a higher demand for that subject matter. And so we're striving, at least in the 2023 year, that we are able to offer the maximum number of opportunities for officers and deputies and our agencies to have access to a virtual training option. Now, again, moving forward, it'll be a balance where we've got a new section that we've put together in the last year where one of their primary duties is called our instructional design section. One of their primary duties as a section is to do this development of the online training. But as we move forward in that planning, we want to make sure that the high level of access, we felt like that once we were talking with the chiefs and sheriffs, that high level of access was something that was important to consider. But that is a balance, and I just recently met with the Kentucky Association of Chiefs of Police. I'm going to be meeting with the sheriff soon at their conference, and this is an ongoing topic of how to we clearly hear the need for in-service for virtual training options and in-service. Is working with our clients. We see them as our clients. We consider ourselves a service agency to make sure that we're meeting that and something that is meaningful for them. But we are well on our way, I feel like, to making sure that our clients have that ready access to virtual training options if that's what they choose, and how best to deliver that. We're well on our way to getting there by 2024.
Thank you. That is good to hear. I'm glad that you're meeting with folks who are really able to help you think through the implementation, and so I appreciate that. I would hate to limit the individuals who might want to take a class online. So that's just my concern. I think it's very apparent that virtual classes are kind of the way to go, and obviously not all classes can be offered virtually, so I understand that. And Mr. Chairman, if I may ask one more question.
You may.
I appreciate that you're opening academies elsewhere in the state. I know that there's a great need in West Kentucky. In Northern Kentucky, we have roughly 7,000 officers, and I would just submit that we have a great need to bring training a little bit closer to the Northern Kentucky officers as well. We have, as I said, many officers, and I really think that part of the testimony that we've heard today indicates that moving the training closer to individuals and to their families would help you with recruitment and retention. So I hope that at some point we can start having these conversations about how to better serve not just certain parts of the state, but all of our state. So thank you.
Okay, we have two more questions. Representative Herron.
Thank you. And this is a comment that I have, and I appreciate you, Representative Nemes, for bringing up the issues regarding the Juvenile Detention Center. My background has been in juvenile justice, and this is no anything to you all, but I also want this body, this committee, and our entire electeds to know and understand. In 2016, Janiyah McMillan was a black, young juvenile who lost her life inside a detention center. And we have failed to act since 2016. And so I think that what we are seeing right now in our detention centers is a reflection of this body failing to act as it relates to our young people who are justice involved. And it is very unfortunate to what is happening in our detention centers. And I hope that the things that Representative Nemes spoke about are not true. And if they are true, we should be ashamed as leaders that our most vulnerable population of young people are dealing with this in our custody. And so I just want that to be known, and I look forward to working with folks to come up with the best solutions to make sure that our young people are cared for.
Thank you, Representative. I just have a couple questions, and then we'll close out. I don't think there's any more questions. So the report that you just gave, Commissioner or Secretary, will that report be delivered in an official capacity to the legislature in an official report? at the end of this month. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Be
Yes, sir.
delivered to both chambers leadership. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess just to expand a little bit more, obviously the reason we were looking to do something in Western Kentucky was because of the drive, because of the wait, the classroom wait. Many folks, many officers in Western Kentucky are being hired, and they're having to ride doubles in cars for 6-8 months. So can you, when the new Western Kentucky campus is opened and fully functioning, what do you see the wait time being for a new officer that's hired in Kentucky? Is it going to be immediate? Is it going to be a month? What are you hoping for? What's your numbers show?
I'll let Commissioner Gillick answer that.
So the currently the 3 month that's an average. It depends on kind of what time of the year and where agencies are in their hiring cycles. But nonetheless, any wait is a significant issue for that agency. The current plan, and I don't want to get in front of the final document, but as the Deputy Secretary gave in his opening remarks, the initial planning that we have is going to be primarily on in-service delivery, and in the development with the hopes that in the future that could be developed into something closer resembling what we have in Richmond. For us to have an impact on the backlog for basic training, it's going to ultimately have to develop into resources that will address the basic law enforcement training.
So the $150 million investment that you spoke of, that is just for in-service training. Is that correct?
It'll be for not only the in-service training, but SRO training, telecommunicator training, and any of the other training that we offer outside of the basic training will be conducted in Madisonville.
Very good. That's all I needed to know. Any other questions for our panel? Representative Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to correct myself, and you all were very kind not to tell me I was wrong on the number of officers in Northern Kentucky. I misspoke. It's 7,000 statewide, 1,000 in Northern Kentucky. But still the need exists, so thank you for indulging me. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming here and giving the update, and look forward to hearing from you in the future. Folks, this is our last committee. Representative Graham he's getting in here last second. It is.
I'd like to recognize
No, you go.
Three people who are leaving this committee and leaving the General Assembly. All three of these individuals have represented their areas. All of them are from all across Kentucky: Warren County, Jefferson County, and Kenton County. And I'll start with the lady from Warren, Representative Minter, who came here and has worked hard and diligently on behalf of her constituents. And she always put them first. And the people of Warren County, they're going to miss her service, because not only did she represent Warren County, she represented those who didn't have a voice, and she stood up for what was right. And I can also say that to the lady from Jefferson, Cantrell, who decided to run for the judicial branch of government. And the one thing about the lady from Jefferson was that she felt very passionate about the law, and she worked very hard across the aisle with those who are within the law. And I think that at some point in time, we will hear from her again, whether in the judicial branch or the executive branch or the legislative branch. But she too was an individual who came here with the idea not of what she could do for herself, but what she could do for the people that she represented in Jefferson County. And the gentleman from Kenton, Representative Wheatley, had to step out. He had another meeting. But I know that district that he represented before that Arnold Simpson represented that district. And Arnold Simpson left a legacy that he followed, and he did the exact same thing that Arnold Simpson. He tried to work across the aisle, and he was very successful in doing that with a lot of legislation. And we're very proud of the fact that no matter what the obstacles were, all three of these individuals were determined. They were fighters, and they will continue to be fighters. And I salute them in their service, not only to the Commonwealth, but to their communities from which they represented. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you, Representative Graham. Sometimes we get as chairman, you get in a haste and hurry, and I appreciate being called on that. We actually have 10 people that are leaving the committee and retiring, so we're going to have quite a bit of turnover here. So we have Senator McGarvey, Senator Schroeder, Representative Cantrell, Representative Duplessis, Representative Fisher, Representative Flood, Representative Mentor, Representative Scott, and Representative Wheatley. So we do have quite a bit of turnover that's going to occur. And I'm going to yield to Representative Nemus. He'd like to say a word about one of our retiring members.
Thank you. I think we all want to associate ourselves with Representative Graham's comments as well. I think job well done for everyone leaving. I also want to mention one additional person in particular, and that's the chairperson, the chairman, Jerry Miller, who's a dear friend of mine. When I came into the General Assembly, he kind of helped me out and showed me the ropes a little bit. But with respect to policy, he's a titan. The difficulties that we faced over the last decade, most of the big ones have been put right in his lap. He didn't shy away from any of them. In the pension debates, he guided us through those very difficult times, and he did it with aplomb. He also, for the first time in nearly 50 years, enacted a redistricting plan that passed judicial muster, and it was a judicial plan that was attacked, but not attacked for racial composition, as he was virulently attacked on the floor for that. But there was no challenge there, and the courts have upheld his plan. Jerry Miller, from whatever bill he put to the floor, he always did it as a happy warrior, somebody who, with those who disagree with him, he would disagree with a smile, and those who agreed with him, he would go to battle for. So we'll miss Jerry Miller in the General Assembly, but a bigger loss is for the people of the city of Louisville. So I wanted to recognize his service and friendship.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for the members that are retiring for your service. Thank you so much for members that are coming back for the 2023 general session. And we'll stand adjourned.